What's up, everybody? Alex Muda here with Adams Performance, and we're going to go through an on-base U on-field assessment with Reed Garrett. He's a right-handed pitcher, currently in the Orioles organization. He's been 94 to 96 this season so far, touching 98. So that tells us a good story about maximizing power with the least amount of effort, or at least we're going to be able to tell a more detailed story while watching this camera angle here. And so the main impetus of doing on-base U is understanding how a player moves and why they move and how that relates to on-field competencies or tendencies. And so we're also looking at the results as well, which also kind of bleeds into what pitching coaches would do as far as like manipulating pitches, understanding where like their fingers lay, and then just the results of like pitch selection, things like that. But we want to be able to understand how a player moves and how they repeat their delivery, and how that affects command and power, which he has. So the first thing we're going to look at here is called sway. And so with sway, that goes hand in hand with single leg strength, being able to balance. Shoes come into play here. If you have a shoe with a thicker sole, that might throw you off balance a little bit. The mound as well plays a role here. We're indoors here, so using a mound that is dependable, sturdy, really comes into play here. So as you are here, all we're looking for is making sure that back knee doesn't go backwards away from home plate in a way that's excessive, and so Reed does a good job of that. So that is sway. And that's something we look for here in physical limitations, like I said. Single leg strength, but also hip mobility, ankle mobility, the ability to balance, so lower body stability, and then also front leg hip flexion. So right here, let me draw a little circle here, is front leg hip flexion here. So if they had a problem, a physical limitation with that, that might hinder the backside. All right, so the next thing we'll look at here is called hanging back. And so we draw a line out in front of their front hip, and then from there we would make sure that they make a positive move going forward towards the mound here. And so abductor strength comes into play here, single leg balance, groin strength, single leg strength, the ability to use that single leg and balance and help set up and not mess up the upper half as well. So those are a few key attributes to not hanging back, and that's an on-base U inhibitor that we look at when we're taking a look at this view here in practice mode when he's throwing bullpens, and then also in game, which we're doing a lot with our high schoolers right now because we're able to actually get to their games and set up our little mini mobile lab that we have. So now the next thing we're going to look at here is closing the front side or closing the back side. And so how we do that is you get the ball to its lowest point here, and then let's go ahead right there. And so we draw lines on backside on shoulders and then hips as well. We could also use per play AI to assist us as far as the numbers, as far as like giving a stats to like the tilt here and the stride length, which we're going to talk about later, and the hip to shoulder separation. Those are some concepts that are a little bit harder to see with your naked eye here. So that per play AI would come into play here as well, as far as like giving us the numbers as a tilt here. So he's a closing the backside guy, and on-base U talks about that, helping with velocity as well. And so with this, we're just making sure if there's any type of low back discomfort that or any type of injury that would pop up in season or in practice mode in the off season here, that doesn't affect their delivery. So we understand that Reed is a slight backside tilt guy, and so if there's anything that comes up physically, that doesn't change up his biomechanics if he didn't want to or if he didn't realize it. If he was meaning to do that, then hey, we're cool with that. And it doesn't even have to be us being cool with it. It's all about on-field stuff like coaching staff, skills coach, pitching coaches, things like that. So that's another thing that we look at here, or that is the third thing. Now the next thing is getting out front here, which we would really depend on Pro Play AI here. And so what we're looking for here is hip to shoulder separation. So once he gets his foot down here, draw a line middle here. And we're looking to see if his head or his pelvis or his torso gets out in front of that pelvis here. And so this is a little bit more blurry than we would want. But that being said, we would be able to see where his belt buckle is in relation, which it's not as clear here. So we would depend on Pro Play AI to give us numbers to that. And all in all, we're looking to understand what his relationship is with his lower body and his upper body. Talk to him about what he's seen, what he's learned over his career as far as what's comfortable for him, and then his experiences with that and how that relates to, all in all, being able to repeat what he does, command, and then maximize power. With a guy at this level, when we go through an OnBase U screen, he is telling us everything about him. And that's also really important too. So if we work with our high schoolers, a lot of them, or some of them, I would say, have really no idea what they do. They just grab the ball and throw the ball, or strictly listen to only what people say. But you need to understand what you do as well and what makes you good, and what makes you physically, what you're able to do physically. So now the next thing here is late riser. And so how we look at that is when we get to foot touch here, where is his arm in space? So that's really clear. You'd want the ball and your hand above that line here. So, yep. And let's say that, and that goes hand in hand with stride length as well. So if he stopped his stride length right here, or he got his foot down, that would be a big change as far as like the arm swing and things like that. So lower body strength, lower body power, single leg strength, ankle mobility, hip mobility, abductor strength plays a huge role in setting up the upper half as well, and the timing of that. The mound, the shoes, there's a lot of factors that come into play here. So the next two things, we're not even going to touch on this video today because we'd have to get the second base view, which we set up when we are in a controlled setting like this at Adam's Performance here. So we're going to talk about, let's say, two more things here. That's what we have time for. So early stride length and claps in the front knee. So now as we go, so stride length, we'd really depend on Pro Play AI because it would give us a numerical number here. So what we look for here with the naked eye as well is the stride length and what the players overall experience with their stride length. Do they understand what their stride length and what that means with the upper half setting up, and what that means with the arm setting up and things like that. And then if there's any type of injury that comes up into play, making sure that their stride length doesn't change and affect all the timing and things like that. So collapse in the front knee, how we look at that. And that's the last thing we'll look at. There are 2-3 more things that we'd look at in a normal OnBase U screen. And then we would go from, after looking at this, we would try to compile more information and make sure that they're doing what they normally do and what they want to do movement wise. So the last thing is collapse in the front knee. So we would take their leg and get the foot plant here and make sure that their knee and their thigh doesn't go past this line. So he's clean and he's efficient with that. So single leg strength, ankle or foot strength here, being able to stop, decel, and then having that knee extension velocity to coincide with landing on the mound. So having a sturdy mound comes into play here as well. So that's most of the things that we go through with OnBase U. We talk with the player about this, and then we intend and try to make sure that the pitching coach gets this information, and we don't overstep what we're looking to do as a performance staff. We're looking to make sure that the person understands how they move, why they move the way they do, how that affects repeatability, command, and overall power, which he has. And then from there, we play a role in helping the player either maximize their movement patterns or strength and conditioning stuff and things of that nature.